This is James Holder for IFL TV in association with Macklin's Gym Marbella. I'm in Manchester for the Glory Road press conference ahead of the Shout the Phones for You arena. With me, I've got Eddie Hearn. What's up, End? All right?
How you doing, James? I didn't know you were still coming to Matchroom shows.
That's a bit low, Ed.
I know. I've had some funny tweets. Congratulations on your new show. You got more shows than don't know, ITV at the minute. You're everywhere. Fight Pass, Box Nation, sponsored by MGM, Scots, Betway. You're flying.
It's a really nice thing for you.
So you get Manchester and Quigg gets Las Vegas.
Don't get me started.
I know. But at least he got his Mayweather exclusive. That was a big scoop. It was like Harry Enfield, wasn't he? Oh, thank you, Floyd.
Bit grateful, over grateful. Let's talk about the card. Scott Quigg, massive. Well, not really, truly, you've brought in the best of what you could probably get with 3 weeks' notice. But again, massive fight in JAMOYE. He's been there, he's done it, he's very experienced. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Well, 5 really exciting TV fights. I mean, 11 fights on the card. Now let's break them down. Scotty Cardle against Kurt Goddins for the English title, and a mandatory to become the mandatory for Terry Flanagan. It's a great fight between two kids who are quality lightweights, and what I like about it the most is it means so much to them. This is their little world title fight, and you know, if you lose at this juncture, your dreams of those big nights and big fights are kind of like not necessarily over, but it's a huge setback. It's going to be a great fight. Second up on Sky Sports is Sam Eggington against Denton Vassell, which could just be one of the fights of the year. You know, two great lads. Eggington is just all action. Vassell's coming back. You know, he's been Commonwealth champion, lost to Frankie Gavin. Many say should be that level above Eggington, but Eggington's only 20. You know, I mean, he's got a great engine, and he's a top fighter. Then you've got Anthony Crolla against Gamaliel Diaz. I feel like that's Crolla's toughest fight to date. Obviously, Diaz lost quite a lot early in his career, beat Guerrero, fought Linares, won the WBC super featherweight title, lost it into Japan to Miura. I think was robbed against Dante Jordan quite recently.
Yeah, I agree.
Looks the part. So then you've got Anthony Joshua against Konstantin Eric, which is a good step up for him. He looks like something out of a James Bond movie. Wouldn't like to mess with him in a bar. Wow, looks like a lunatic. Good fight for Anthony. You know, Eric is I think 21-9. Went 12 with Orlando Solis. You know, went the distance with Baktov, who Joshua is fighting next. And then you got Scott Quigg in with JAMOYE, who at 24 has fought just about everybody of note. Obviously, boxed Leo Santa Cruz, had a very controversial loss to one of the Kameda brothers. Controversial decision loss to Jane McDonnell. Knocked out Lee Haskins. Fought Yamanaka recently in Japan. So he's been
in Japan.
Yeah, he's been everywhere. He you know, you saw from the face-off, he's up for it. He's game. I don't think quite as skillful as Ambunda, but I think plenty more game, plenty more heart, plenty more pressure, much more exciting fight. And listen, I know virtually every super bantamweight in the division because I've either offered them or spoke to their team about fighting Scott Quigg. Other than Rigondeaux, you know, there's not a fighter in the division that we haven't spoken to. So it's tough to match Scott Quigg because he's young, he's getting better and better, and you'll see on Saturday another devastating performance.
If he comes through this as expected, can we look to start the negotiations with the Frampton fight and maybe potentially get that for his next fight?
Well, I hope so. You know, obviously Frampton's got his mandatory against Avalos, and we represent Avalos with Top Rank, so we can talk, we can all find a solution. And I'm already involved in the correspondence going back and forth with the IBF and Top Rank and Cyclone Promotions for that fight. Frampton talks about he might have picked up a little injury in that fight, so we have to see how that progresses. But listen, if everyone just uses a little bit of common sense, I think the fight can get made. I have to be careful what I say because people play back my clips, and you know, as time changes, things that you say don't become, you know, right or wrong or more relevant, and everyone's talking about it. You know, the first thing that Carl Frampton mentioned after the fight was Scott Quigg, and I'm sure the first thing Scott Quigg will mention after this fight is Carl Frampton. Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone wants to see the fight. If the people that advise and make the moves really care about their fighters and really want to give them the opportunities to have the most lucrative paydays and the biggest fights possible, there's no way the fight can't get made. You know, if it becomes about ego, then the fight might not be made. But it's not about me, it's not about Barry McGuigan, it's about doing our duty for the fighters that we represent. And I want Scott Quigg in the biggest fight possible, which is Carl Frampton. And Carl Frampton's team should want Carl Frampton in the biggest fight possible, which is Scott Quigg.
If you're saying you want it, Scott Quigg is saying he wants to fight. Obviously, Barry and Carl Frampton have been quite vocal recently about wanting the fight. What obstacles are there for the fight not to happen, Ed?
Well, in the past, the obstacles were mainly with the broadcaster. They had a broadcast deal with Box Nation. As I understand it, that's finished. So now it should be a lot more straightforward. The only obstacles now will probably be in relation to the split and people's perception about belts and who brings what. The fact is you know, they need each other. And again, I'll go back to my quotes, which we used in a Sky interview, where I said Scott Quigg needs Carl Frampton. 100% at that time he did. He had no promoter. He couldn't get a fight. He didn't have a broadcaster. He needed Carl Frampton so badly. Now he has a world title, he has Sky Sports, and he has the best promoter in the business, even if I may say so myself. And listen, you know, that's not a tongue-in-cheek comment. No, sorry to say it, but the bottom line is that things have changed. But does Carl Frampton sell more tickets than Scott Quigg? Yes, absolutely. Does Scott Quigg, is he watched on TV by probably 10 times the audience? Yes. So he brings something to it. Does Scott Quigg bring the broadcaster and potentially box office? And does his promoter bring box office and pay-per-view? Yes. So I think we're quite powerful in these negotiations as well. We're not meaning to, we don't want to be greedy. It's very straightforward, the deal. But don't think you bring all the aces, because you don't. You know. But again, I like Carl Frampton. He's a great fighter. Scott Quigg's a great fighter. But it's not about, you know, again, the only issues that we're going to have are with Barry McGuigan. Because they all want the fight, let's just make it happen. But again, it's not about Barry McGuigan. Do your job for your fighter, which is give him a bumper payday and the biggest fight out there in the division.
If they said it has to be made, but it has to go over to Ireland for the fight.
Not a problem. If the numbers make sense. My only concern, and people say, why does it have to be in Manchester? When we're looking at the fight now, potentially after Saturday, the fight can happen in winter or in spring, right? We can't go outdoors in winter or spring in Belfast. In fact, we can't go outdoors anywhere. So the sensible option would be to have it in Manchester, in a 21,000-seater arena at Phones for You. Carl would bring 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 himself. Scott would sell it out. They both would. It's a great fight. And if they've got a problem with coming to Manchester, this is why I say, let's do 2 fights, where you've got your split for the first fight, and whoever wins the first fight takes the lion's share in the next fight. But that's outdoors at Belfast, and that'll probably do 30 or 40,000. You know, it's not, oh, well, don't you think Scott Quigg win? No, I'll just let them have 2 opportunities to have it off. You know, one in Manchester, one in Belfast. It doesn't really matter. You know, our job is to provide for our fighters, give them the opportunities, have the biggest fights and the biggest amount of money. You know, and when I talk about negotiating, you know, it's not who sells more tickets. It's more than that. Who brings the broadcaster? Who brings the box office? Who brings the pay-per-view? And the answer is Scott Quigg and Matchroom. So, but again, I don't want to get into, oh, I've got this and he's got that and he sells these tickets. I don't care. Just make the fight. 2 great kids, 2 great fighters, 2 world champions.
Can we get a word on how Kell Brook is doing, please, Eddie? I know you've been out.
Yeah, he's back home. A horrific injury. You know, I was out in Tenerife on Friday. Contrary to reports, 1 wound, not 4 or 5 and slash marks and all sorts, but a horrific wound.
So we 1 wound to his
wound to the middle of his thigh. Horrific. I mean, you'll see it come out in a few papers sort of over the weekend, I think. A really bad wound. But miraculously, no ligament damage, no tendon damage.
Thank God.
Just muscular damage. And he's already up walking. They're talking about 4 or 5 weeks. He should be able to resume training. So I think that in terms of, obviously December 6th is off, but realistically February, early March. So in terms of time disruption to him, I think probably 2 or 3 months tops. Never ideal preparation, but you know, listen, he's always been a long-standing project, Kell Brook. So this is just another chapter to that book that will eventually get written.
Am I right in thinking this could potentially slow the window down of the Amir Khan fight being made, or you still look?
No, not really, because you know, Khan will fight in December, I think, no doubt.
Yep.
And if he wants to fight next, we're happy to wait till April, May for that fight. If not, Kell will fight in February or March, and then we can make the Khan fight in the summer.
Would you look to have Kell to have a tune-up fight before that fight?
I don't think he's had 33 fights. He's capable of boxing any welterweight in the world. So if there's a fight again that's that lucrative, you've got to take it with both hands. Otherwise, you're going to miss the boat. So I think hopefully that can get made, and if it's made next, then we'll welcome it with open arms.
Can I get a quick word on Nathan Cleverly, Tony Bellew? Can you tell me what is going on with this fight? And are we still going ahead?
We're definitely going ahead. Obviously, it was planned for December 6th on the Kell Brook card in Sheffield. We've got November 29th held at the Echo, so we might go back there. It is on Tony's stomping ground, so I feel like Nathan should get an edge in the negotiations and in the deal, and I think Tony understands that as well. Nathan's been to Liverpool before. I think he's happy to do so again. I spoke to him on the way up here. He understands the situation. We were building a monster show on December 6th, and it looks like we're now going to build a monster show on November 29th in Liverpool. So, you know, it's going to take me a couple of days, but as far as the Cleverly Bellew fight goes, that's still happening, and look for an announcement probably in the next week to 10 days.
No, you've got your first Fight Pass show tonight, David Caldwell.
Tomorrow night.
Sorry, excuse me, day ahead of myself. First Fight Pass show in Sheffield tomorrow night with David Caldwell's bill. Looking forward to getting this thing moving?
I am, and I'm looking forward to going as a fan. You know, Dave Caldwell puts on some great shows, some great fights there. Patterson against Gaynor is a really, really good fight. One that I'd welcome on one of our shows, you know, and also a rematch of that fight of the year. And with Jerome Wilson, you've got you got young Maxie Hughes on the bill as well. I'm looking forward to just going as a fan. First fight on Fight Pass. Fingers crossed with all the streaming. We had some unbelievable amounts of sign-ups. It's going really, really well. And you know, you'll find, you know, with the ticket priority, probably the first time to really utilise that will be November the 29th, which will sell out instantly. But Fight Pass members will get the opportunity to make sure they get their ticket. But this Friday is our first live show. So tune in and enjoy it, and tune in on Saturday night, 8 o'clock on Sky Sports.
Just to reiterate, so it looks like Cleverly Bellew will be on November the 29th.
Yeah, I think so. You know, we've got to restructure the deal, so to speak, because originally it was neutral ground, and you know, obviously people are always looking for edges. And if you've got to go to Liverpool, I think Cleverly should get an edge in that respect. So it will happen. It's the biggest fight again for both of them in the division right now, and they're both smart people.
All right. Well, listen. Thanks for answering my question so honestly. I look forward to seeing you at the weigh-in tomorrow, and yeah, keep doing what you're doing.
Cheers, James.